Good morning, folks. Happy Ascend Sunday. Uh, it's rainy here in Augusta. I'm hoping it's not raining where you are, considering that contractor was wanting to get some of that work done today. Um, but anyway, let me tell you our text, and then I'll just give you a few updates on some things. Proverbs 18:18. That's chapter 18, verse 18 of Proverbs. That will be our text this morning. As far as updates go, um, the fishing trip that Sister Scott got me for, I'm still not sure if it was Father's Day or my birthday or what it was for, but yeah, it was one of those things. I'm thinking um, we had a good time yesterday. We were out, a good while. Fishing was a little bit slow, but it was nice to be out on the water. And Kylie and Natalie um, got sunburned, so you know to keep them in your prayers. Um, we're going to have lunch and spend the day with his family down here today. And head back in the morning, and I can't wait to see the work that our contractor has done. I know he's already got that piece of gutter that was hanging um, over the side stairs. He's got that down, and he's repairing that. He says he's only going to have to replace like a 2 foot section of it to be able to use that most of the what was there. Um, so it won't cost us a whole arm and a leg for that. He's also working on um, repairing the handicap ramp a little bit. Um, some of the boards, basically the screws have just come, broken off or come loose, and he's going to get those down. The boards that are too warped or whatever for screws to hold, he's going to replace. And then he's also working on repairing the concrete stairs themselves. So he's expecting to be done by tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see how everything looks, and you guys will get to see it for the first time next Sunday, I guess. Um, Also, keep in mind Jordan. Jordan will be going down to get him in a couple of weeks, and we'll try to get him all set up for community college and try to help him get his life on track. So pray for the trip and pray for us. But that's coming up in a while. Anyway, let's go to our text. As far as prayer requests, I haven't had anyone send me anything this morning, so um, I don't guess there's a lot except for the usual. Just pray for everyone's families and finances. I know Sister Teresa always want to pray for finances. Pray for Sister Barb. I know that she mentioned to me last Sunday that she's in a situation where her husband, they're threatening to either take his license or um, not want him to drive, because I think he has some sleep apnea issues, and that puts a big burden on her. So let's pray for her too. Um, but other than that, I guess just the usual prayer requests. Like I said, I haven't heard anything back from anyone. So our text today is Proverbs 18, verse 18. And this is a little verse that at first doesn't seem to have a whole lot going on. And it's not one of those verses that I remember reading, that people talk about or preaching before, when I've read the Bible through, I guess Proverbs, every verse is a different little nugget of wisdom. And if you read it all in one setting, you only remember one or two of them. And this is one that my mind just didn't hang on to. There must have been some others in that chapter that were more interesting to me at the time. But there's a lot in this verse. Proverbs 18:18 says, "The lot puts an end to quarrels and decides between powerful contenders." The lot puts an end to quarrels and decides between powerful contenders. So this morning's title is A Lot to Gain. A Lot to Gain. We love you this morning, Lord. We ask you to put your hand on the lesson, help us to learn from it. Also put your hand on all the needs of your people, and we ask that you meet those needs and take care of us. And we look forward to coming together in your presence again next week. All right. So let's talk about this. I'm going to list a few things now that I think reveal a particular value that I think we have lost. And who knows, maybe we never had it. I know that there are peoples and cultures and groups that do have it, but it has never seemed to really be at the top of our list of priorities. I mean, we give it lip service sometimes, and sometimes occasionally we'll see it materialize. But anyway, let me get on with it. You'll see what I'm saying. All right, let me give you some statements. These are things that people say, and sometimes they say it with a lot of passion and with a lot of conviction and emotion and firmness and pride. But these are some sayings that are popular in our society. I want my voice to be heard. I want my voice to be heard. Don't give in. Don't give in. Our side won or our side lost. Or maybe I want our side to win or I want their side to lose. Here's another one. We will never back down. We will never back down. Here's another one. Our demands are non-negotiable. Our list of demands are non-negotiable. And then finally, never compromise. Never compromise. These are things that are said frequently in our society. Here's some realities that accompany these statements. It's common for people to refuse to even speak with those with whom they disagree. It's common for people to avoid legitimate, true, real information. It's common for people to embrace propaganda, speculation, and conspiracy. It's common for negotiations to break down because either one or both sides will not compromise and negotiate. Like it or not, these are hallmarks of who we are as a nation. And often, these same things are definitely at work in churches too. So, I think these things highlight this lost value that I'm talking about. So, what is this lost value? Well, I think it exists in Proverbs 18:18, but it doesn't exist explicitly. It's not said, um, out loud in Proverbs 18, verse 18. It's there behind the scenes of the verse, making the verse possible. If it weren't for this value, this verse would make no sense in any society. But because this value existed somewhere, somehow, in someone's mind, in some society somewhere, this verse was possible. There's something beautiful there. There's something worth having. It's worth having just as much as anything, any item, any value that people want to fight for. Any perpetually warring faction, any cause, any agenda, anything that they hold up high as they crusade. There's a thing in this verse that's just as valuable as any of those. So let's dig into the verse and see what becomes apparent as we brush away the surface and look at the meaning of it. First of all, I want to draw your attention to the word quarrel. A quarrel. Not a minor disagreement, not some philosophical debate, not some interesting back and forth over, some hypothetical point. This is a quarrel. A quarrel. Think about when you've had a quarrel with somebody. I want you to think of what that is. That's a lot more than just casually sitting over a cup of coffee and kicking around an idea from two different sides, right? This is a quarrel. This matters. This is a big deal. I want to draw your attention to some other words. Between powerful contenders. A contender is one person on the side of a dispute, on the side of an argument, on the side of a case or a conflict, right? So a contender, a powerful contender. So these aren't casual debaters. These aren't proxies for someone other cause. These aren't just interested third parties. These aren't even pushover opponents. No, these are people that are very passionate, very vehement about their particular side. These two people or parties have been quarreling. These are powerful contenders. They have passion invested into their side. They're making strong arguments for their side. They believe in their side and they are struggling for their side. Okay? So you got the picture. They are quarreling. This is hot. This is intense. But now I draw your attention to the very first part, probably the word that you would think of first, because it's the subject of the sentence. Yep, it's the subject of the sentence. It says the lot. What are we talking about when a lot? Well, in the Bible, when you draw lots, you, yeah, I think wasn't it Jonah? Yeah, it was Jonah. He's on the ship, and they were trying to figure out who in the world was to blame for all the wrath of God being poured out on the ship and threatened to sink it. And they drew lots, and Lot drew the short straw, right? And they knew it was him. I'm sorry, Jonah drew the short straw. I'm getting mixed up with Bible character Lot. Forgive me. Jonah drew the short straw, and they knew to throw him overboard, and that's when he got swallowed by the whale. So this is, in essence, the equivalent of rolling a dice or flipping a coin. Okay? Now, let's go back and read this again. So if we put it in modern terms, flipping a coin ends a quarrel between powerful contenders. It decides between powerful contenders. Flipping a coin. Wow. Can you imagine anyone that you know today in America being okay if something that they felt strongly about, something that was so much that they were presenting strong arguments for, their passion was poured out in it, they were intensely advocating for it. Can you imagine can you imagine this scenario in America where, okay, both sides have presented strong cases, so here's how we're going to flip a coin? I can't see that happening in America. I can't see whichever side lost going along with the decision made by a coin toss. And yet these two people are, or parties, parties, whichever they are. They're allowing a random, basically luck mechanism decide the final outcome for something they feel strongly and passionately about. Why is this possible? Well, for this to be possible, it takes a particular kind of person or citizen. It requires a person that feels a connection to the other person, the opponent. They feel a connection, and they feel that connection is more valuable than their agenda. Otherwise, why go along with the coin toss? This can only work in a particular kind of society. In a society where the good of the whole, the good of many, is more important than any single cause or individual right. In a society where the power of cooperation is valued above winning your case or winning your cause or winning for your side. So it takes people with that kind of mindset in a society that values those particular things to allow something so important, something so vital to two different parties in the end to say, okay, we've made our case. There's something going on here where you're never going to quite agree with me. You feel that this thing is much more important than the thing that I've shown you. And yet I think this thing is more important, and we really can't come to agreement. But because it is important that we stick together, it's more important that you and I don't go our separate ways, that you and I stay invested in everyone, the group's success. Because that thing is more important, we're going to cast a lot. We're going to pull straws. We're going to flip a coin. And whatever comes of that, if you wind up winning the coin toss because you're more valuable, I'm going to just go along with this. I'm going to agree to work within the framework of what you've decided, what you want to happen, because you're more valuable than this thing we're arguing about. These things, this mentality of believing in cooperation, believing in dialogue and negotiation, believing in making a decision and accepting the outcome even when your side lost. These things are worth having in their own right. They're beautiful by their own right. That's a moral thing all by itself. It enables people to come together and achieve things. It enables people to be concerned about each other, to care about each other more than their own thing. It allows a more selfless society. These things are just as valuable as any individual right. This principle is just as valuable as any one group interest. Individual liberty, group interests, rights, these are important things, and there are important truths to be had from those focuses. However, if that's what governs everything all alone, if they're given total preeminence, those things can also, individual rights, individual group agendas, individual liberty, those things can exacerbate, perpetuate, even instigate fractions, fighting, never-ending war. They can guarantee a never-ending cycle of contention and debate and even destruction. When all we can see and all we value is my way, my group's way, or my personal way, then we're unbalanced. There is a value to valuing the individual. There is a value to hearing each individual voice. But notice that sentence, there's a value to hearing every voice. Hearing every voice. We can't honestly say we're hearing every voice if the moment they get through talking, we're yelling our counterpoint back at them. Right? That's not hearing each other. You know, in the Old Testament, I started to do a little deeper study and bring back some of the information that I have talked about in the past about the Tower of Babel. But I didn't want to. You know, I've really gone into that in depth in the past, but I will mention it briefly. You know, there is no description of what God saw the people doing when they were building the Tower of Babel. There's no moment where God says they're committing adultery, they're murderous, they're serving idols. There's no indication in the chapter itself that they were doing something horrifically evil. What God knows is these people have got their minds together. These people are working together. And because they're working together, whatever they set their mind to do, they can do. Now, that was the opposite of what God wanted for them at the time, because he wanted, after the flood, he wanted them to spread out and populate the planet. And by working together and having a mind of unity, well, they weren't doing that. They were, you know, they were a unified society who was working for everyone's benefit. And so because that wasn't what God wanted at the time, he confused their languages, made it where they couldn't understand each other, and they went their separate ways. But there's no indication in that chapter that they were doing some great sin. It's just it was wrong timing-wise. There's a powerful lesson in that. God said, man, when they get their mind together and they really work together, they can accomplish anything. You know, I have heard people talk about, you know, it's interesting. We have this instance in the Bible where everyone's coming together. God breaks it up. also have, the New Testament prophecy about the Antichrist and one world order. That prophecies suggest the world coming together. And this, in this instance, is an evil thing. And yet, by the same token, we also have sermon after sermon where ministers would preach to churches, unity, unity, unity. So it puts us in a conflicted place when it comes to unifying and coming together. In the one instance, God broke it up. In another instance, it's a part of actual evil plan. But I'm hoping that we as Christians aren't so vested in a crusade mentality where everything is about fighting and warring and defending our turf and defeating someone else, that we can't see the value of listening. We can't see the value of actually looking at all sides and information and being fair and open-minded about things. Because there are real core values, real moral attributes, character traits that when it's all about winning and fighting and crusading, and we don't value people on the opposite side at all, and we aren't able to listen and really hear them out, there are real moral traits we don't have, that we lose, that we never develop, we never grow past a certain point. We don't know how to build. We don't know how to move ahead. We only know how to tear down and destroy. Let's turn and look at some other verses. Proverbs 17:1. Better is a dry morsel with quiet than a house full of feasting with strife. When society doesn't value cooperation and togetherness, when strife, fighting, making sure their voice is heard and their side wins, and never giving up, never giving in, never compromising, peaceful people, peaceable people, people who believe in the value of hearing others, and they only have one option in that kind of society. Their only option is just to try to find a place of seclusion and try to keep away from the strife, because it's toxic. It's toxic, and you really can't build anything that way. You have the individual groups building a little bit, and then the other kid runs across and kicks over their sandcastle, instead of building a real city. I don't want us to be a place where peaceful people feel like they don't belong. We don't want to be a people where the peacemakers among us look around and say, this is a hopeless cause. Proverbs 3, verse 30. Do not contend with a man for no reason when he has done you no harm. Don't argue and fight with a guy who's done you no harm. You don't have any reason to. So I think Solomon was onto something here. He was realizing, some people it's not that they really have anything in their life all the time that they need to be arguing and fighting for. It's just they're argumentative people. They've become so accustomed to arguing and contending and fighting and bickering that their brain just works that way now. And they're always on the lookout. They're always vigilant for the offense, and therefore the world has plenty of inequities in it. So someone whose brain becomes fixated on, defending my turf, they're always going to see, offenses and encroachments coming. And so here Solomon says, don't contend with man for no reason. Then you stop and ask yourself, I see something, I feel like I need to say something. But ask yourself, is it really something you have to argue about? Is it, he's done nothing to you? Do you really have to go down that road? If the answer is no, then don't. Here's a principle I love. If you see something broken or something not right, or someone's not doing something they ought to be doing, something needs fixing. Number one, obviously the criteria is it really something that has to be has to be fixed? Is it something that has to be dealt with? Second criteria is, do I have the position, any kind of authority, or I'm in a place where that person will hear me? And then finally, is there anything I can actually do about it? If I can't say yes to all three of those things, then I may not even try to address it. The most I might do is say, hey, I just noticed this, and leave it at that. But if there's nothing real that's wrong, it's just a difference of opinion or something that rankles me a little bit. Hey, so what? That's my problem. If I don't have any kind of position or rapport or authority in their life, where they're gonna look at me like, who are you? I'm not going to say something, because rightfully they're gonna look at me. It's like, who are you? We love people who just will tell anybody off. And well, it may be fun to watch on YouTube, but you know what? The person they're telling off, they're looking like, who are you? Right? And then third of all, if I really can't help it or fix it, then there's just as much chance that I'm going to do harm as there is good. Because me weighing in and trying to meddle with something when I cannot fix it could wind up just leading to resentment, and that person entrenching and resisting the idea of the fix even more. So if I can't say yes to all three of those, then I probably have to let it slide, because if it's not really something really wrong, and if I'm not a person they can hear it from, and if I don't know of a way to fix it, then me saying something is just fighting for fighting's sake. Finally, let's look at Proverbs 18:19. A brother offended is more unyielding than a strong city. Now, this is a common metaphor and principle that we see in Scripture a lot. I want to draw your attention to the last phrase here. And quarreling is like the bars of a castle. Quarreling is like a lot of people, they will try to justify their contentiousness. Well, I'm just saying something because hopefully in the future, you'll know better and you won't do it again, right? So they're quarreling because they think by running their yap that they're giving someone else wisdom that they're going to follow, and it's going to fix it. But Solomon was onto a fascinating and kind of sad truth about human nature when he said, "And quarreling is like the bars of a castle." Here's the thing about quarreling. Quarreling is never taken as a friend trying to give kind advice. Quarreling is never taken like that. Quarreling is never viewed as someone who cares or an expert or someone who. Here's what quarreling is viewed as. It's viewed as a fight. And we know this. Don't you know? You know quarreling's a fight. When you quarrel, it is a synonym for fighting. And you want to know how we respond to fighting? Put up our defenses. It's like the bars of a castle. We defend against it. We repel it. Except in this case, it's not a physical assault. So it's not trying to make arrows or catapult stones or spears bounce off or push invaders out. In this case, it's not a castle, it's our mind. And boy, you just think a castle's hard to penetrate. Try penetrating a closed mind. The bars of a mind, the defenses of a mind, whenever we feel someone coming on and they're pushing hard and quarreling, even when they're right, it never gets past the bars. So we never even get to consider it. Solomon was onto something about human nature here. We resist quarreling. We defend it. We don't take it at all well. So if you're a quarrelsome person and you think you're doing it because you're trying to help them, maybe you need to go back and ask yourself those three questions. Is it really something that needs fixing? Am I really a person they're going to listen to? Do I really know how to fix it? And if you're not fixing it, and that's another thing. Those are the three questions before I ever ask anything. I ask another question after I've started going down that road. I look back and say, okay, here's what I did. Is it working? Am I fixing it or am I making it worse? And if I have to say I'm making it worse, I'm not helping at all. Or if I say I don't seem to be having an impact at all, It's not wise to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. Quarreling is like the bars of a castle. You bring the fight, you bring the defenses. And when the defenses go up on a closed mind, when a mind closes off, there nothing can penetrate it. I love you today. I hope you take this this value to heart, and remember there is a lot to gain. Remember this little verse. Someone is so into valuing each other that even over something they feel passionate about, they're willing to give it up in favor of staying connected and working with the other person on the roll of a dice. I love you, and we will see you this coming Sunday.